Hi guys, my name is Tanasia and this is Carla. Our presentation covers Module 5, Power, Privilege, or Oppression Discussion Lead. The topic of our presentation is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the social issue we chose to talk about is Trump's plan to eliminate DEI. This topic came about after the plane crash. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that. That happened in DC where Trump blamed DEI for the plane crash. So we chose to focus our social issue on the topic of him eliminating DEI. And here's the picture here. Who does this issue affect? This issue affects marginalized groups and individuals, people of color, women, those a part of the LGBTQ community, minorities, disabled individuals, federal workers, and a broad number of organizations and businesses. So just a brief summary of our issue in the DEI. What is the DEI? The DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion and was established to promote an equitable society where every person has equal access to opportunities and resources. Why is Trump planning to eliminate the DEI programs and initiatives? Trump claims his reasoning for eliminating the DEI is to have a society that is colorblind and merit-based. How does the elimination of DEI relate to racial capitalism? The elimination of the DEI will reinforce racial capitalism, where those that are affected are less likely to get certain opportunities and will be treated unfairly in the society, the same as before, and probably worse due to racial inequality. How does the elimination of DEI represent the way power is being used to change the system? The elimination of DEI represents the way power is being used to change the system because individuals such as Trump, who are in positions of privilege and advantages and hierarchy, often neglect the need for equality and inclusion.
In this slide, we'll show you a YouTube clip of that same story.
Here it goes.
Meantime, tonight, President Trump coming before the cameras in the White House briefing room today, calling for a moment of silence. And then moments later, the president implying that DEI policies, diversity, equity, and inclusion, might have contributed to the crash. Mary Bruce was in the briefing room.
Tonight, with the recovery effort underway and the investigation only just beginning, President Trump, without any evidence, blaming the diversity policies of his predecessors for the deadly crash.
A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately.
The president accusing the previous administrations of hiring air traffic controllers based on diversity goals, not qualifications. He's saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring. And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power.
But Trump also acknowledged he wasn't sure if the air traffic controllers made any mistakes. Former President Biden's Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg responding, despicable, saying as families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, and had 0 commercial airline crash fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch. And David, tonight, President Trump is doubling down on these claims that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are to blame for this tragedy, saying it's, quote, because I have common sense. But again, he's presented no evidence, and this investigation is only just beginning. David.
Oh.
Mary Bruce in the briefing room today. Mary, thank you.
A comment I placed here is that the civil rights leader Mark Morial claims that abolishing DEI is beyond presidential power and asks other organizations and leaders to fight back against the dismantling of DEI initiatives. Next slide, please.
Meantime, tonight, President Trump coming before.
Reasons for choosing the story, I based this from M4A1. In short, covering Ty's points as well, DEI is diversity, is the representation of people from various backgrounds at all organizational levels, including disabilities, religions, ages, class status, sexual orientations, and etc. Equity focuses on impartiality and fairness, while inclusion is if people feel they belong. So arguably, DEI represents people's differences in the hiring process. Differences are empirical phenomena, i.e. being white is not inherently more adaptive, desirable, or better than being non-white. If attributes are different, one set becomes preferred over others. Hence, assigning values to attributes or value-ridden meanings attached to empirical differences allows for hierarchical power-based dynamics. And how does this lead to Trump's claims? If DEI's purpose was to create fair opportunities for marginalized groups, then taking away these initiatives will exacerbate inequality and oppression for these groups. And according to Trump in the video that we saw, the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Administration, hired on diversity goals and not qualifications, alluding that diversity hiring doesn't meet high standards or the brain power required for such jobs, thus placing negative connotations on DEI and weaponizing people's differences as reasons why failures occur. Next slide, please. Thoughts on eliminating DEI? I base this from the article we read in Racial Capitalism. So racial capitalism is alluding that racism is the root. And in the article, it speaks on lower orders, and the function was to provide privileged classes with the human resources and material needed for their maintenance and further quantity of wealth and power. While ruling classes, capitalism enhanced religious, ethnic, and national divisions founded from feudal society. And feudal society was a hierarchical social system where small ruling class owned land and peasants worked the land in exchange for protection and other services, thus expanding racial tones. So DEI seems to help the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So elimination of DEI would mean the underdevelopment of marginalized groups, not granted the same opportunities, hence perpetuating the wealth, power, and privilege of dominant classes. Next slide. Why others may not see eliminating DEI as an issue, I base this from M5D1, Wealth Inequality in America. So in short, conservative legislators and arguably a large amount of conservatives recently attacked DEI initiatives, claiming that DEI is a waste of taxpayer money and violates the law to expressly favor some demographic groups to the detriment of others. Furthermore, stating that the issue is not diversity, the issue is equity, is not equality, and that people should be extended opportunity based on talent and merit. In figure 2, it shows a graph that demonstrates otherwise, displaying that the top 1% of earners make up 40% of all the nation's wealth, while the bottom becomes less distinguishable from each other. Hence, conservatives believe that the elimination of DEI would promote a more just and equal society. Next slide. We came up with the following 2 questions. The first is with reference to the matrix of power relations. How would you describe power and powerlessness on this issue?
And the second question is, how does the elimination of the DEI reflect and reinforce racial capitalism? And what does this mean for the society in the upcoming years?
Thanks for watching.
Here's our references, and thank you for watching.